In one of my first videos on this channel, I explained how procrastination and mastery and your ikigai are all connected. From about age 11 to like 21, I struggled quite a lot in life. And it wasn't because I experienced very tough things or had some sort of extraordinarily bad childhood. It's just that my internal state was not good. Now, there's many facets to your internal state, and I could talk about that for hours, but I just want to focus on one main point, and that is that I was lacking purpose. The reason that I find purpose so key for INTPs is that for us, oftentimes, we need some sort of meaning or purpose in order for us to meet our other needs in life. Most of us need to get paid in order to pay our bills for food and water and housing, etc. Most of us don't socialize all that well with people we have little in common with or that don't understand us, or when we don't have a certain fundamental confidence. Most of us have a strong need for feeling competent and accomplished and capable. And because of our analytical, observant, and introspective nature, I feel like there are a lot of INTPs that are on this path of self awareness and personal development and self actualization. And in case you didn't notice, I basically just went over Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We need to get paid in order to meet our physiological and safety needs. We then have a need for connectedness with other people, of course, like any human does. We usually are quite self-critical and things like that, and so we need to get quite competent in order to feel competent as well. And of course, in order for us to live a good life, as a very introspective personality type, and self-actualization is key, because I feel like to a degree we're always attuned with what we truly want and what we don't really care about. On top of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, there's also like a sixth level you could add, which is self-transcendence, right? So our need to contribute to something that's bigger than ourselves. And I love this model, and I would love to actually read Maslow's books instead of just relying on this one pyramid model of his. Um, but what I feel is lacking in the model is a way to get there, like a understanding not just of what needs we have to meet, but also of how we can do so. And that is where ikigai comes in. The word ikigai is Japanese, and it means something like um, the reason for getting up in the morning, or the joy of always being busy, or just in general, our purpose, right? That is the core concept or core meaning of ikigai. And your ikigai is said to be something that you discover rather than choose or create or build. You see, you're born with certain skills and well developed traits, and other things have to be developed instead, or are things that you have to work on consciously in order to get competent at. Now, because we have this ability to develop things as human beings, a lot of people tend to see your purpose as something that you choose or create. In a way that is encouraging, because it tells us that we are in control of our lives and not just uh, genetically determined creatures or environmentally determined creatures. We have, of course, independent will, but it doesn't hurt to look at what is already well developed inside of you, what developed naturally in and of itself, and what you are naturally good at and what you enjoy doing as well. Because usually, if you enjoy doing something, you'll do it more, which means also you'll get better. So, in short, I like to believe that I am in control of my life, but it doesn't hurt to look at what natural tendencies and skills and traits I have. And the Ikigai model helps us figure out how we can combine that with our purpose. Because your Ikigai is where four circles meet, right? Is where your passions meet with your skills. So, what you love doing, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what you can be paid for. And when you find something that meets all of those criteria, you have your Ikigai. And there's obviously quite some overlap between the Ikigai model and Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So basically, our Ikigai is how we meet our Maslow's needs. Especially our need, this the sixth need of self transcendence, is something that we can easily figure out, or not easily, but we can figure out using the Ikigai model because it asks fundamentally, what does the world need? Finding your Ikigai, then, is the key to dissolving your meaning crisis. So, how do you find your Ikigai? Basically, it's a matter of questioning, right? You want to figure out for all the four topics, what is that for me? What am I good at? And that's a process of inquiry, self inquiry, and to a degree also research, right? But let me first pose you with some questions you can ask for each of the four topics and then get into more concretely what I recommend doing and what I did myself in order to get to where I am now. So you can ask yourself, when it comes to what do you love? What is your passion? What do you enjoy now? What do you enjoy in childhood? What gets you into flow? And what are some tendencies, INTP tendencies, that you notice in yourself, right? So, as INTPs, we have a very serious tendency to analyze things, for example. That means to a degree also that we enjoy it, right? So, analysis is an element that I definitely consider in my Ikigai. Because it is a tendency and because it is well developed, it is also something that I'm good at and that most INTPs are good at. So, analysis is definitely a key element. You can also ask yourself, when it comes to what are you good at, is what do you have experience in, right? Or what feels like play to you but work to others. And what you're good at is probably the element here that you have the most control over, because if you're still at an earlier stage in life, it's completely up to you to determine what skills you get good at, right? Of course, you're naturally good at analyzing complex problems and coming up with creative, out of the box solutions. But the way you actually use that is completely up to you. You can both apply that in agriculture or politics, right? The third element is, what does the world need? And for this, of course, that is a big question, right? But what I recommend is to watch long form content and to read books on societal issues. And then your natural tendency to analyze will help you figure out what really matters and can sort of help you figure out and see through the bullshit. And what you can be paid for is basically anything with which you solve a problem, right? Because money is generated, so to say, or money is earned when value is created, and value is created when pain is alleviated or a change, a transformation is made in someone's life and they go from a bad state to a better state. And the way you do that is to solve problems, right? And again, we can start to see here that really, as INTPs, we have a lot to contribute and we have a lot of traits that can give us purpose so long as we take some intentional, conscious work to figure out what it is for us that we want to do. In short, what is key here is to understand that you want to combine your INTP strengths with whatever mission or career path you choose. Um, because if you do so, you can have so much more impact than if you forget about your natural tendencies and passions and inclinations and traits, right? So anything that involves understanding something deeply and then coming up with creative solutions for it is key. Other people will be better at executing those ideas you have for solutions or bringing them into reality or um, trying out the different ideas you have to figure out in reality which works best. And so for me, my goal really is to get to a place where I can have some sort of leverage and work with other people to do some of the work that I'm not very good at, instead of trying to hammer down on improving my weaknesses. I spoke to an ITP entrepreneur a couple of days ago, and he said as well is that if you work on improving your weaknesses, they'll at best get mediocre compared to the general population. But if you can focus on improving your strengths continuously, you could be 10 times better at that than the average person. And for INTPs, we can have a lot of impact that way by really, really, really understanding the core of a problem and mapping out a situation. And once we've done that, we're also quite creative in what different solutions or pathways we can take in order to effectively deal with said issue. So if I were to boil down my advice into 3 points, it is understand yourself better. Because the more you understand yourself, the more you will know not just what you care about and what you want to work on, but also what you're good at and how you can effectively or most effectively impact what you really care about. Right? So self-inquiry, self-awareness, some journaling exercises, things like that can really help you figure out who you are and what you care about and what you're good at. Reading is also key, reading about psychology and things like that to understand yourself better, but also reading about the world and understanding issues better is key because what you see in the news is not the root of an issue. It never really is, right? Um, Small minds discuss people, mediocre minds discuss events like the news, and great minds discuss ideas. So, what is really the root cause of the issues that you see in the news, right? That's key. And that is basically it. Understand yourself better, write, journal, write essays, get your thoughts out there, and really learn to develop your thinking and continue reading and understanding and gathering information that allows you to make the most accurate map of reality that you can make. I'll finish off with a quote here from the book The Productive INTP. Carl Jung, the famous Swiss psychologist, believed interests in life are a circumambulatory event. You are moving around something sacred, like a potential you whom you could become if you kept up with the pursuit, allowing everything to die that kept you from moving forward and following through with your interest. You, as an INTP, should have interests that seem to repeat themselves throughout your life, but unfortunately, obstacles and psychological baggage hold you back. Now, you might also ask what my purpose is or what I think my purpose is as of this moment. And if I look at what I'm good at and what I enjoy doing, it is analyzing complex and important issues, things like health, nutrition, uh, psychology, personal development, etc. Because what I believe the world needs is better individuals. I don't really care about the political system, subsidies, laws, incentives, all of that. And I don't think that that will make the world a better place. I believe that the only way to progress to a better world is to have better individuals. And the way individuals get better is to follow um, their highest self, basically, right? To become everything they can be. And a part of my purpose is trying to figure out specifically for INTPs how they can be the best they can be and live their best lives. And what I came up with is that the first step in my journey was to figure out, or rather to realize that I have a lot of potential, right? That is like step one in the good life. And once you realize that you have a lot of potential, you'll also be motivated to use it. If you don't feel like you are capable of much, you won't take steps toward it, right? This is sort of where shame comes in. I made a video about that. A lot of INTPs feel like they're not that powerful, they're not that able, they don't have much to contribute, when really they do. They have a lot of potential. And realizing that is a prerequisite to then wanting to find your purpose in the first place, because it does take conscious effort to figure out what it is that you want to do and to decide in the first place that you're going to work towards something, not just for yourself, but also where you help the world. And of course, once you've found your purpose, what a lot of INTPs do is procrastinate. Procrastination can be an issue when you're studying or whatever it was for me and you didn't really care about what you were doing. But if you can tie your study, for example, or whatever it is that you're working on, to this greater purpose, then you can find the motivation you need uh, to overcome procrastination, because motivation is not the solution to procrastination, but you need some motivation to want to overcome your procrastination. And then I believe that procrastination is mostly about overcoming your distraction, your anxiety, and your tendency to overanalyze. I'll show you that in a bit. But the next step then is productivity, which is about focus and effectiveness. Then you want to increase your performance, which is like your ability to work more hours with focus and with effectiveness. Because then you'll get to play in a short period. I believe that INTPs can get to a place of mastery and competence quite quickly if they follow this route, right? If they have a clear purpose or reason why. So I've tried to sort of create this thing I call the INTP project, where it's sort of just a community or a group for INTPs to follow this roadmap basically. And I'm trying to pull together some resources about like the cognitive functions, because they can really help you figure out what you're good at. Um, some videos of mine about like how to first realize that you have potential and how you can sort of follow this roadmap. Um, Videos about what we're good at. Some content about Ikigai, right? And I'll try to add more to this in the future. I even gave some potential purposes based on what I have realized and the content and books that I've consumed, so to say. And I've added some of those videos here, and I'll continue to do so. Then procrastination, like I said, is about distraction, which is something that everyone struggles with. Anxiety is a bit more INTP specific because we care so much about um, our self-image as an intelligent person, to so to say, or a capable person, and because we tend to worry too much about what other people will think. And then, of course, the most INTP specific, and also I think the most difficult to beat, is our tendency to overanalyze. Because let's say you are motivated and you're not distracted and you're not held back by anxiety, you might still get to work, quote unquote, by analyzing, even though you've done that sufficiently already. And then, of course, at procrastination, there's productivity, right? So, how do you get productive as an INTP? How do you increase your performance? Again, in the productive INTP, it says exercise, diet, sleep, and meditation is energy, and energy is a way better thing to focus on. And energy management is more key to productivity than time management. And then, of course, the ultimate goal is to get to a place where work feels like play and you're basically always in flow and you've achieved mastery, at least to a certain degree. Because I think for INTPs, having such a groundedness in our ability and having a certain identity, as in we're this kind of person, we're a marketer, we're a salesman, an analyst, or whatever, having some sort of groundedness in that sense makes it so much easier to actually find and develop healthy relationships with others and to have mental health, right? But that's basically my hypothesis. If you want to join this and get access to all of this for free, then you can just click the link below in the description. And that was it for this video.